Hunter x Hunter chapter 412 is out right now, and this chapter confirms effectively what the cliffhanger that we got from Kurapika at the end of the previous chapter was. And it was honestly something that I was kind of close to, but also something that was not out of the realm of possibility. We also got a nice touch-in with Beyond at the end of the chapter, with some more delegated legal stuff that he's going on with. We also dive into, still, a bunch of problems that Kurapika will still have to deal with, despite how things go with the revelation at the beginning of this chapter and how last chapter ended. So there's a lot to talk about. So we're just going to jump straight into this because, as always, Hunter x Hunter has a lot of information. But in comparison to the previous chapter, there's not as much for me to fully dive into to make a 30-plus minute video. Potentially. Who knows? I'm recording this off the cuff, so we'll see what happens. Anyway, we'll just get right into it. So the chapter begins literally 5 hours before the martial law was declared. So in this instance, we are very, very close to where chapter 410 left off with. So, yeah, and this does confirm that this is when Kurapika, revealing that Prince Wobble is ineligible to take part in the succession contest, is. So that's where last chapter was, and now we know officially where the time frame is right now. So we're inching closer to the events that are happening right before martial law happens. Now, obviously, Kurapika shakes everyone with the revelation that Wobble is just not eligible for the succession contest, but Slacko, one of the second queen's bodyguard, ends up laughing and thinks of this as just a cheap way to lie to everybody, because Kurapika just gave a whole bunch of information in the previous chapter that took up the majority of the video in the last review for me to break down. And even then, I don't think I got everything in full detail from my personal understanding. I even got stuff in the comments saying that I forgot some people's names sometimes, and I apologize for that. Either way, we did get a lot of information, and I also thought that Kurapika saying that Wobble was ineligible to participate in the succession contest was potentially a lie that he was cooking up to kind of mess with everybody to protect Wobble. But we also had the other opportunity that Queen Oito was not a legal queen of the Empire. But we're going to get into the actual thing with Wobble. But Slacka is just saying that Kurapika is obviously lying to them. But Kurapika just tells him, no, I told you no lies whatsoever. All this is true. Even though everything that was built on my hypothesis for how the succession contest came to be was just under my personal understanding of Nen and the circumstances surrounding the succession contest and how it was brought forth, he is very confident that that is the case. But again, like I mentioned last week, there's obviously stuff that could still be added in that Kurapika missed and could not think of. So there's still room for extra stuff to be added in to explore with the full depth of the succession contest going forward. And after all that, he just says, alright, so after all the revelations and everything and all the information I gave you, let's reconvene at 10 a.m. tomorrow, and if you want to drop out, you can drop out. So we'll see you again the next day. Instead, we cut further back in time to 48 hours before martial law was declared, so 2 days before the end of chapter 410. As we are just basically running down some more of the information that we learned during the last batch of chapters, when we learned about Beyond Netero's kids and the Nen curses and everything that was placed from Beyond Netero with all the different kids that he had awakened Nen with when they were infants so that they could infiltrate the Gaki military, get close to the princes, and also one of them might actually be a prince. There's still not a confirmation on that. That was just Longhee's theory. I actually forgot about that. But it's still very possible, and knowing Togashi, that will most definitely be the case. And so this becomes a big thing that Kurapika needs to figure out. Right now, a big priority is to figure out who Beyond Netero's children are, and who the princes that each of these different kids are effectively bypassingly cursed to and cursing of are. And to try and bring them onto their side, prevent them from dying, prevent the Nen curses from activating and killing all the princes and stuff like that. Because again, the overarching goal right now is to make sure nobody else dies in the succession contest and bring this stalemate. And obviously with what Kurapika deduced with how the succession contest is, the whole royal family will basically fall from power. But that's a different thing to think about right now. Now, Queen Oito ends up going up pretty eagerly to Kurapika and sheepishly saying, use your chain on me. I have no I have no connection to Beyond Netero whatsoever, but do this because, to make you trust me more. But Kurapika says that, no, he fully trusts Queen Oito and says there's no need to. So we throw that out for a minute. But yeah, we still need to figure out what the heck is going on with all the Nencurse users that Beyond Netero created and had infiltrated the Kakin Empire and are all essentially on the ship and close to all the princes, with one of them potentially being a prince. This next part with Kurapika is with the servant Shimanu, or Shimano, I say that in two different ways for a reason, is that we actually get a lesson in Kakinese. That sounds dirty when I say it like that. Forgive my pronunciation. But we get a lesson in this fictional language that Togashi created for this fictional country that is obviously based off of China, but ends up going over how specific letterings and words have different vernacular, different ways to be said in a masculine or feminine way, similar to how when you can say an A for one letter, but it can be two different words, or etc. Stuff like that. It's a whole thing I'm not going to get into. Basically, Kurapika, even though one time he got the name right for Shimanu, he kept saying it's Shimano, so it kept, it was confusing for him, and he didn't pick up on it since he has no real knowledge of how things are pronounced in Kakinese. Bill knows because he's one of Beyond Netero's expedition team members that was assigned on here, and he knows Kakinese due to Beyond Netero and everything. So, he would pick up on this, and so he basically tells Kurapika that he's kind of messing up with the pronunciation unintentionally, but also says that they shouldn't expect Kurapika to, understand the pronunciation and differences in vernacular, slight differences that people wouldn't really understand, and even then, some people that will know the language could miss it or view it as a mistake every now and again from some people who can in fact talk with that language and vernacular. And I just like the face that Kurapika gives because it just feels like classic old school HunterxHunter from the very beginning, some face that Gon or even Killua would make, just trying to deny that he messed up and did something stupid and doesn't want to look like an idiot. It's nice seeing Kurapika just unwind for a second and be a little goofy, considering he's the most serious character out of the main four quartet at this point, and he's the main character of this section of the story. And he's been thrown with a ton of horrific stuff and a lot of pressure, so they're seeing a moment where he's just a goofy teenager, because he is a teenager still, effectively. It's just nice to see that there's still that side of the character that we could potentially see him go back to once his mission is complete, once he gets his clan's eyes back. But it's then during this whole section, Bill thinks for a second and calls Kurapika over and tells him something that shocks him, which Kurapika asks, "Are you sure?" It's then we get back to him confronting Queen Oito now, and ends up saying, "You know what? Let's do my chain assessment. Let's be absolutely sure that you're telling the truth. That way we can both have full 100% clear transparency and trust with each other." And that's what Queen Oito wants first. So he just has to, at first he asks a bunch of random questions and easy questions for her to say yes or no to, so he can calibrate the truth chain, and then he just asks a bunch of random questions and more personal questions by him saying for her to say yes to all of them so he can pinpoint a lie here and there. He's fine-tuning everything. And now when all that's said and done, he asks the big question. Is the Prince Wobble sitting in that crib the same baby that I held in my arms 2 months ago? And this is when Queen Oito is in complete shock and just complete despair, knowing that the ruse, the gig is up. As this is a full page of just no dialogue whatsoever, just facial reactions, as Kurapika is also stunned by Queen Oito's just sheer silence and shock. We get an image of Prince Wobble, and now we cut back as Queen Oito just, instead of answering yes or no to the question, just says, "Wobble is my child." But Kurapika says, "Hey, you gotta say yes or no to this, and so you really need to specify by just saying yes or no to the question. That's how this ability works." But Oito just gives up and says, "How did you know about this? How did you know to ask me that question?" And Kurapika announces that that's what Bill told him in the last section, just right before this interaction. And apparently, Bill noticed a little earlier that after getting on the ship, it only slipped once, but when Oito used a different, like, vowel or vernacular for the B in Woble's name, the more masculine version, not the feminine version, because Woble is a girl, and so, like, he thought of it as nothing. But now that we go back and forth and think about it, he thought we'd bring this up to Kurapika after, mentioning how he kept mispronouncing Shimanu and Shimano with the name, with the vernacular, and we go through everything. So he figured he would let Kurapika know about this, because this is something that we should confirm. And so Kurapika ends up deducing, again, that the reason Oito wanted Kurapika to use his truth chain on her was to lead to the question of asking, is Prince Woble your child? So that she can answer that correctly. That way, she is telling the truth, while not lying, despite the actual Prince Woble not being seemingly on the ship and participating in the secession contest. So, yeah, Queen Oito thought this through, but obviously, with the whole Nen stuff going on, she obviously did not expect things to turn out this way, but wanted to cover her bases after knowing Kurapika has a way of deducing truth from lies, so by trying to maneuver him in a way like that, but it didn't pan out due to literally Bill noticing and teaching the lessons of different vernacular and masculine and feminine pronunciations of different vowels and letters to Kurapika in this section, ends up applying to the realization that Oito slipped up a few times, and so that is something that needs to be put into question. So, good on Togashi for writing this section of the story, because apparently, I looked through the Reddit beforehand also, and apparently, this is something that's happened with the official translations of the manga as well, where Shimano and Shimanu was, like, translated in two different ways, and everyone just thought it was a translation error, but apparently it wasn't. And this is a way of Togashi just literally throwing us off, and the official translations were still very much on the money in terms of that. Because sometimes you forget, Hunter is a fictional world, yes, but there's also the possibility of fictional languages and fictional vernacular with how things are pronounced. Even though HunterxHunter is literally just our world's map, just flipped and rearranged with how the continents are. And obvious real-world parallels to the HunterxHunter world countries and everything. So, yeah, there's that. Either way, that's a really interesting thing to throw into this chapter. And it basically makes us recontextualize a lot of things in terms of the Kaken Empire. So, like, this could be something that could apply in the future with how certain, like, phrases or titles or names are pronounced that we wouldn't know, but would have to see what happens with other characters. So, Togashi's not just throwing this in here for this one reveal of Woble not being present. It's got to be something else that's going to happen in the story that Togashi is going to just reveal to us later on the road. Or this is just a nice thing that Togashi wanted to give a bit more extra flavor for the reveal. Who knows? We then get the answer of Queen Oito, who is the baby that has been here in the room in the crib this entire time that she's been pretending to be her daughter. It's revealed it's the son of her sister. And so right before they set off to the Black Whale, she passed her daughter off to her sister, and her sister gave her son to pass off as Woble. When the whole seed orange ceremony happened at the hotel a couple months back before the voyage started, yes, Woble's blood was put into the seed urn and was entered in the succession contest. But after that, Oito swapped the babies. But obviously, since she had no knowledge of Nen or how the succession contest would work at all, she assumed that it would be alright to just swap the babies afterwards, and even though she is technically committing treason, if she is, like, found out, she would beg for mercy, and at the very least, the babies would be spared. So, like, that is something that came into being, and that's something that she thought of. Big risk, and for a succession contest, whole big thing. But also, considering the fact that with literally all the stuff we've learned about the succession contest through Kurapika's deductions, it's very possible that Woble or Queen Oito or the fake Woble effectively and Oito's sister could fall under the judgment of the Nen restrictions, and that could harm them in negative ways. Because, like, we have no idea if there will be, like, some kind of, like, death penalty from the succession contest or something, because when you break rules of Nen, it literally has dire consequences. You cannot learn Nen, you might lose eyesight, you could lose your life. There's a whole myriad of ways for Nen to kind of destroy or, like, take something away in compensation for the restrictions placed on it. So, like, we don't know of that at all. And for all we know, Woble isn't on the ship right now. because Oito has no clue where her sister is at the moment or where the actual Prince Wobble is. So we literally have no news on what happened to the baby that was supposed to be here in this literal death game. And if we get the same thing that happened with Kacho, when the Succession Contest started and she and Fugetsu tried to escape, but Kacho died because of, the restrictions and everything of the Nen abilities and Nen restrictions of the Succession Contest, Wobble might already be dead, but we have no idea. There's a lot of variables to get into when it comes to this and think about, so generally I got no idea. But after all this, Kurapika tells Bobby Mina, one of Benjamin's men, and I forget his name, one of Zhang Lei's men, who is with them in the room, confirming this again, and basically just says, "You heard the queen. We are outsiders in this contest." And so that's one whole page just showcasing Kurapika, Bill, Bobby Mina, and Zhang Lei's bodyguard that helped forge their alliance. So, it's unclear that this happens. It's a weird transition because we go right back to the next day to the next Nen class for Kurapika. But this definitely happened before the big revelation, a couple of hours before that class. And then we transition to more present day, I guess what we could say, for this section of the story. So, right now, at this moment, Prince Benjamin's men and Zhang Lei's men, most likely the princes themselves, know about Kurapika's revelations and everything. But, when we cut back to the next day at 10 a.m., after Kurapika gave this revelation and information, basically the only bodyguard and attendee of his Nen class to drop out was Slaka. So, the queen basically probably didn't feel any need for Slaka to still be there to mix things up, because unless he comes back as a wild card for all we know, I got no clue. But Kurapika was kind of hoping that at least Benjamin and Zhang Lei's men would kind of leave them. No idea about Zhang Lei because they have an alliance and Zhang Lei is interested in Nen, so it benefits him to stay in the Nen class with his attendees no matter what the revelation is. But Benjamin's men are definitely going to be there regardless of Prince Wobble's eligibility, because obviously everybody knows Nen, there's a stalemate, and his faction loses their whole advantage because everybody in his faction knows Nen. Benjamin knows Nen in comparison to all the other princes before the Succession Contest happened. Same with Camilla. So we have the two high-ranking princes knowing Nen, with the first one having an entire faction around Nen users as his own personal army and militia. So, if everybody else knows Nen, they lose their advantage, and the idea of a stalemate still happens. We then get a massive, sprawling text page from Kurapika going over everything that we just learned, and all the possibilities and everything. But I'll just give you the cliff notes, because I'm not going to go and read every single minute of this, because this will be another 5 minutes plus my speculation. One point, he wants to keep the status quo as it is. No princes are going against each other. They're men learning Nen and to maintain the stalemate. He also makes sure that the 3rd and 5th princes, Tabeppa and Zhang Lei, find him useful so they can keep their alliance and thus not cause any real issues at the moment. So he's thinking about the long game right now, because despite the revelations, he does want these specific princes to still trust him and view him useful so he can use them eventually so they can get this arachnid. It's not stated right there, but obviously that's his end goal at the moment. But he still has to protect Queen Oito from potential assassins. And he then goes over the fact that obviously Wobble isn't there on the boat, but he might still be on the boat. It is a very likely possibility that Oito's sister might actually be somewhere in a different tier on the boat with the actual Prince Wobble, so Wobble might still be alive, might still be technically eligible. So, if that baby is still well hidden enough and no one finds out where that baby is, if she is on the boat, then the Succession Contest, even if there are maybe 1 or 2 princes left on the first tier, the Succession Contest is null and void because multiple princes are still surviving at the end of the Succession Contest. So there's that. He also wants to identify all the curse bearers of Beyond Netero, because we have no idea the range of the curses. Because even if 14th Prince Wobble is off of the Blackwell, back on mainland Kakin or wherever she is with Oito, Queen Oito's sister, we don't know the range. Because let's say Wobble is fine and hasn't received any backlash from the Seedorn from the Succession Contest at the moment, for all we know. The curse could still get Wobble if the curse user dies or the curse is activated through Beyond Netero for all we know. So Kurapika needs to find out where all the curse users are, where all of the Beyond Netero's kids are. Either get them on their side to kind of make sure that they don't, follow through with all that, or they end up just finding a way to kind of remove or bypass the curses. A Net Exorcist would definitely be necessary, so we still have a quest for an Net Exorcist with Kurapika right now, but also with Camilla's faction, because if specific princes die from other means, then the have-nots from Camilla's faction would still die from the Nen curses, or would still have the conditions of the Nen vows through those Nen curses, so they'd have to get those curses removed by an Exorcist. So we have that going on. So we definitely need a Nen Exorcist, but even then, it seems like a powerful Nen Exorcist might not even be able to remove it. Maybe alter it for all we know, but even still, it is very much out there for how this could end up going through. I got no idea where this is leading us. Obviously, Kurapika's thinking of asking Beyond directly, but the risks of that are definitely, up there. We got no clue how this will pan out. So, again, a lot of things to consider with this intricate web that's going on with Beyond, the princes, the political powers, and everything. There's so much going on. And even then, there might be more that we don't even know yet. But it's then we transition back to the man himself, Beyond Netero. His first appearance since Chapter 401 of the last batch of chapters for HunterxHunter. So we got back to him. He's still being watched over by the Tiger and Monkey Zodiac, who, again, I can't remember everyone's names, because there's so many characters named in HunterxHunter, important and just supporting and everything, that I forget names, unfortunately, so tell me in the comments. I'll make sure I gotta start making a lot more notes for different characters and leave it off on the side so I can look up when I'm talking. Anyway, we're back to Beyond Netero, and last time we saw him, he wanted to request to see somebody. And who, in fact, he ends up seeing? It's not, Periston, who all we know, but then again, we have no idea where Periston is. And it's not another Zodiac member or one of the princes. No, it's Cleopatra, or Cleopatra. I believe she is the head of the judiciary branch of the Kankin government. And basically, she's there to kind of give an update on Beyond, on all the lawsuits he's involved in through all these different court cases within Kankin. Many of which being complaints against him, but Beyond also threw a whole bunch of complaints that are filed through him. So, whole bunch of court jargon going on. And even then, one thing that Beyond was kind of advocating for was the specificity between the royal family and the people, and that they should all be under the jurisdiction of citizens of the empire, citizens of the country, because obviously the royal family and the citizens are kind of aren't treated equally, and regular citizens are probably not treated as people. So, yeah, Beyond wanted to go through that, but apparently that was thrown out because King Nasui has already put in something like that, a revolutionary idea for the Kankin dictatorship, and even Beyond acknowledges, man, maintaining a dictatorship while also giving the guise of a full-blown democracy is definitely a hard thing to do. Yeah. But yeah, there's that. We also have the fact that Cleopatra ended up bringing in a whole boatload of files from all these different cases from Beyond and against Beyond, and a lot of them got thrown out because, a whole bunch of reasons. Some of them one court case was with Beyond and his broadcast about the Dark Continent starting his expedition was kind of thrown out by the G5 nations before they became the G6 because all that was thrown into with the Kankin voyage and everything. So yeah, that makes sense. That whole lawsuit and everything and court case would have to be thrown out because of Kankin and everything. So that's kind of dealt with, but there's still a whole bunch of court cases that he has to comb through himself and everything, and the Zodiacs are basically being forced to help him that are guarding him right now. But at the moment, they're just passing him stuff at random, and at this point, Beyond's yeah, sure, give them to me. I'll just read through all of them just to pass time. I got a month and a half. I still got a month and a half on this damn boat. I need something to read. It's boring as shit in here, which I find hilarious. And yeah, it's kind of a comedic instance at the end of this chapter. Now, something that people are kind of theorizing is that Cleopatra is one of Beyond Netero's kids. The possibility is definitely up there, especially since Beyond asked her personally to look over these court documents and proceedings and everything, and she came when he summoned her. So, the possibility is there. It could also show just how deep Beyond and his lineage potentially has rooted itself within the Kakin Empire while he was there for that long. So, like, we got a lot of stuff with Beyond and his scheming and everything. But yeah, that's also another wrinkle in things that we gotta think about what that could potentially happen with that. Because, like, he's like, oh yeah, no, I've known her since she was in diapers. Look at how she is right now. And, like, yeah, that's kind of hilarious. But yeah, that's how the chapter ends in a comedic way. Not some big revelation or some major death or political reveal. Just court cases that Beyond is just going through for time. But that's the entire chapter 412 of Hunter x Hunter. Another good chapter. While not as dense, in my opinion, as the previous with all that different information and explanations, we got a good amount with the Wobble baby swap, the repercussions of that, the fact that 9 class is still going on, Kurapika thinking through how all this could happen, the Kakinese vernacular lesson that we got to lead into the reveal. Genuinely, really great stuff. Hunter x Hunter is always great when we get some moments of just genuine intrigue, and Togashi's really good at this. Like, this is the most politically charged arc in terms of its narrative, and how complicated it is, and Togashi's performing it masterfully. Especially if you don't know how everything is happening. I'm probably still, like, blind to some things that are happening until they pop back up in the manga later on. So, like, there's still a lot of Hunter x Hunter to talk about and explain, so I genuinely cannot wait to jump back into it next week. And for all we know, we're either going to continue with the stuff with Kurapika's Nen class again, or we'll jump back to, like, the Phantom Troop and Hisoka, for all we know, because there's still them. Or maybe we'll cut back in and see what's going on with Saradnik. Man, I am genuinely curious to see how far his Nen training is going and how fucked we are if he completes it and advances that far. But, and we also got to see what's going on with Morena and Borkson, because we're still, like, 5 hours away or so from, like, martial law being declared. But that's really it. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below on everything involving Hunter x Hunter in this chapter. If there's stuff I missed, that's stuff that I could do better for future videos, because I still need to improve on everything. Let me know in the comments below. And once more, if you haven't already, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and it shows you guys enjoy what I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. With all that said and done, hope you all have an awesome day.